Okay, so this is the third section of chapter 1. It's on the layers of the atmosphere, of which there are 4 main layers, and then there's a couple sublayers in there. But the layers of the atmosphere are classified according to changes in temperature. So we'll talk about how that goes as we go through the layers of the atmosphere. This here is a good depiction of kind of going from the ground up, what our atmosphere, kind of the distances that each part of the atmosphere undertakes. And you can see some parts are really small, and then there's the outer part which is super, super huge. So we'll start with each layer and go one by one. Okay, so this is the troposphere. The troposphere is the lowest layer of the atmosphere. If you think of pretty much anything that goes on that you can think about up in the atmosphere, we can talk about it being in the troposphere. So this is that lowest layer. Weather occurs here. So all the weather that we have is going to be occurring in the troposphere. So things that go above the troposphere, weather isn't necessarily going to affect them. So you're not going to have a lot of rainstorms and snowstorms and all of that stuff above the troposphere. So temperature decreases as you go up. This makes sense. Hopefully you can kind of start to think about it. There's less and less particles the more you go up. And so they are not moving as quickly. If we had more particles together, they'd be moving quicker around each other. So there's less particles, which means there's a bigger space for them to go into. They don't move quite as fast, which means it's going to cool down a little bit. Airplanes, for the most part, will kind of travel near the troposphere, maybe go a little bit above the troposphere, but it goes to about 12 kilometers up in the air is where the troposphere starts. So it starts with the ground, and it goes all the way up to 12 kilometers into the air is the troposphere. Should have also mentioned here that most of the mass, in fact, most of the mass is actually here in the troposphere. So most of pretty much anything that takes place in the atmosphere that you can think of takes place in the troposphere. So like I said, contains most of the mass as well. Okay, next we have the stratosphere. The stratosphere starts at about 12 kilometers above Earth's surface, and it goes up to 50 kilometers up above Earth's surface. So it contains the ozone layer, and the upper part is warmer, not if, but is warmer than the lower part, which is kind of weird because you usually think of the temperature decreasing, but just the way that the heat is trapped in that area, especially because the ozone layer is there, which kind of protects us from ultraviolet rays. It's able to be a little bit warmer than that upper part, but that's the main thing that's located is the ozone layer. Okay, so this mesosphere is next as far as the layers go. So we start at the troposphere, then we go to the stratosphere. Next up is the mesosphere. It goes from about 50 kilometers above Earth's surface to 80 kilometers above Earth's surface. This is where meteoroids that might possibly hit the Earth, or actually most of them are going to be like burned up in this particular layer of the atmosphere. So if you've seen a shooting star before, you have seen a meteoroid that's being basically burned up in the atmosphere, and that happens in the mesosphere. The mesosphere is fairly cool. It's cooler, but it, obviously when that's going through, it can be burned up in that area. You can see they've got the altitude and all of that, as well as the temperature. You can see at the end of the stratosphere, which is the second layer, is fairly high, and then it starts to go down pretty quickly in the mesosphere. So temperature increases a bit because of that ozone layer in the stratosphere, but then it starts kind of high and goes down. So it's pretty cold by the top of the mesosphere, which is about 80 kilometers above Earth's surface. Okay, so next, and the final layer here is the thermosphere. There's 2 parts of the thermosphere, the ionosphere and the exosphere, but we'll talk about the thermosphere in general first. So it starts at 80 kilometers above Earth's surface, and it goes out into space. This is like the largest part of the atmosphere. It's the largest distance that the atmosphere goes up. It's very hot there, but it doesn't feel hot because there are not a lot of molecules of gas. So there's very fast-moving molecules, but because they're so spread out, you don't necessarily feel that heat. The first part of the thermosphere is the ionosphere, which is about 80 kilometers to 400 kilometers. Really large area of space there above Earth's surface. Radio waves and things like that are found there. And then actually this is where auroras will take place. So if you've ever seen the northern lights or the southern lights, or if you've heard anything about it, these are basically solar wind or solar particles that kind of get into the atmosphere, and they have this amazing display of lights because of those solar waves that get in there, and that's called an aurora. And those happen up in the ionosphere. So the ionosphere is where you will find auroras taking place. And again, it's because of the energy from the sun. So these molecules basically kind of heat up more, and they just put on this spectacular lights. Okay, so like I said, auroras happen here because of those electrically charged particles. That's in the ionosphere. And then the exosphere is the most outer portion of the thermosphere. In fact, it actually kind of blends into outer space. Basically, there's not a clear line where the Earth's atmosphere ends and space begins. It would be most likely when the gravitational pull of Earth starts to lessen, and you're kind of out of that gravitational pull of Earth, which is when you pretty much leave our atmosphere. So it goes thousands of kilometers above Earth's surface out into space. So this would be, there's really not a lot of stuff that takes place as far as our atmosphere goes. This is just kind of that line between us and space. So if you were to include something in the picture that you're going to draw here, you probably would put something like a spacecraft or a satellite or something, because those types of things would probably be found kind of right on those outer edges of the thermosphere as it extends into space. As you're doing your pictorial thing of this particular section, which is on all of the layers of the atmosphere, kind of think through all the things I said as we've gone around here, or gone through here. You can also look at that picture. The pictures on here is that first slide from here, or also I sent the picture to your parents. The picture is up on PowerSchool Learning, and it's got pictures of pretty much everything that takes place there in those particular layers. I know the the ozone layer is hard to draw because it's just a layer of ozone, but you certainly can draw some sort of line saying that it's the ozone layer, because that's one of the main things that you will find in the stratosphere. So this homework is in the packet that you got at home, or it's on PowerSchool Learning. Like, you can print it off or do it on a separate sheet of paper and send it in to me. Best way to get things to me right now, or take pictures and send them to me to my email, or upload them to the messages section in PowerSchool Learning. Enjoy!